If you're a woman over 50 and you feel jealousy that you can't control, if you find yourself checking your partner's phone even though you know you shouldn't, if you compare yourself constantly to other women and feel inadequate, if you imagine worst-case scenarios about your partner leaving you for someone younger or better, if the jealousy is eating away at your peace and poisoning your relationship, if you're ashamed of these feelings but can't seem to stop them, I need you to hear this. Your jealousy is not proof that you're crazy or insecure or a bad person. Your jealousy is a message, a signal from your unconscious mind trying to tell you something important. And until you understand what that message is, until you decode what the jealousy is really about, you'll keep feeling it, keep acting on it, keep letting it destroy your peace and your relationships. Jealousy is one of the most painful emotions women over 50 experience. And it's particularly painful because it comes with shame. You know you shouldn't feel this way. You know it's irrational. You know your partner hasn't done anything wrong, or if they have, you know your jealous reaction is disproportionate to what actually happened. You tell yourself to stop, to be more confident, to trust more. But the jealousy keeps coming. It rises up in your chest like a fire you can't put out. It makes you say things you regret, do things you're ashamed of, act in ways that push away the very person you're trying to hold on to. And the worst part is, you can't seem to stop. The jealousy has a life of its own. It controls you instead of you controlling it. And here's what makes jealousy particularly intense after 50. You're dealing with a perfect storm of vulnerabilities. You're aging in a culture that worships youth. You're watching your body change in ways that make you feel less desirable. You're seeing younger women everywhere and comparing yourself to them. You're aware that your partner could leave you for someone younger, and unlike when you were 30, you believe they actually might. You're facing the reality that if this relationship ends, starting over feels impossible. So the stakes feel higher, the threat feels more real, and the jealousy feels more justified. But justified or not, it's destroying you, and it's destroying your relationship. And if you don't learn how to transform it, it will cost you everything. Psychologist Walter Riso, who has spent decades studying jealousy and its impact on relationships, teaches something revolutionary. He says that jealousy after 50 is almost never about what you think it's about. You think it's about your partner, about whether they're faithful, about whether they find someone else attractive, about whether they're going to leave. But that's not what it's actually about. Jealousy after 50 is about you, about your relationship with yourself, about the beliefs you hold about your own value, about the wounds you carry from your past, about the fears you have about your future. Your partner is just the screen onto which you're projecting your own insecurity. And until you understand that, until you stop looking at your partner and start looking at yourself, the jealousy will never transform. Today, I'm going to walk you through the psychology of jealousy after 50. Not surface-level advice about just trust more or work on your self-esteem, but deep psychological understanding of what jealousy actually is, where it comes from, what it's trying to tell you, and most importantly, how to transform it. We're going to look at the 3 types of jealousy that plague women over 50. Comparative jealousy, where you're constantly comparing yourself to other women. Possessive jealousy, where you're trying to control your partner. And retroactive jealousy, where you're obsessed with your partner's past. Then we're going to explore the 5 psychological roots that create jealousy. And finally, I'm going to give you 10 specific, practical tools you can use starting today to transform jealousy from a destructive force into useful information that helps you grow. This is not going to be comfortable. Facing jealousy means facing the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the insecurity, the wounds, the beliefs about yourself that you don't want to look at. But avoiding them hasn't made the jealousy go away. It's just made it stronger. So if you're ready to actually transform this, if you're tired of being controlled by jealousy, if you want your peace back, you have to be willing to look at what you've been avoiding. And I'm going to guide you through it. But before we dive in, I need you to do something. If you're a woman over 50 who struggles with jealousy, if you're tired of the shame and the pain and the way it's destroying your relationships, if you're ready to understand what's really happening and transform it, subscribe to this channel right now. This is Enough and Whole. This is your space for honest, deep psychological work. We don't do surface-level advice here. We go to the root. We face what's hard. We transform what's possible. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. And let's do this work together. Now let's begin. Let's understand what jealousy really is, and let's learn how to transform it. The 3 types of jealousy that control women over 50. Before we can transform jealousy, we need to understand what type of jealousy we're dealing with. Because jealousy is not one emotion. It's 3 distinct patterns, each with its own logic, its own triggers, its own psychology. And each one requires a different approach to healing. Most women experience all 3 types to some degree, but usually one is dominant. One is the jealousy that controls you most, and identifying which one is yours is the first step to transforming it. Walter Riso teaches that understanding your jealousy type is critical because each type is telling you something different about what needs healing. Comparative jealousy is telling you about your relationship with yourself and other women. Possessive jealousy is telling you about your need for control and your fear of loss. Retroactive jealousy is telling you about unresolved wounds from your past. So let's break down each type, let's see which one is yours, and let's understand what it's trying to tell you. Type 1. Comparative jealousy, the torture of constant comparison. The first type of jealousy, and the one most common for women over 50, is comparative jealousy. This is when your jealousy is triggered primarily by comparing yourself to other women. You see a younger woman and immediately feel threatened. You notice your partner looking at or talking to another woman, and you immediately start comparing. Is she prettier than me? Younger? Thinner? More interesting? Does he wish he was with her instead of me? And that comparison, that constant measuring of yourself against every other woman, it's torture, because you always find yourself lacking. Always find evidence that the other woman is better. Always conclude that your partner must prefer her. This type of jealousy manifests in specific ways. You're hypervigilant about other women. At parties, restaurants, anywhere you are with your partner, you're scanning for threats. Who is he looking at? Who is looking at him? You compare yourself to every woman in his orbit, his co-workers, his friends' wives, women in movies or TV shows, even women on the street. And every comparison reinforces your belief that you're not enough, not young enough, not attractive enough, not interesting enough. And that belief fuels more jealousy, which fuels more comparing, which fuels more insecurity. It's a vicious cycle that never ends. And here's what makes comparative jealousy particularly brutal after 50. You're comparing yourself to younger women using youth as the standard. And by definition, you can't win that comparison. You're not 25 anymore. You're not 35. Your skin isn't as smooth. Your body isn't as tight. Your energy isn't as boundless. So every comparison confirms what you're afraid of, that you're losing the competition, that younger women have what you've lost, that your partner could easily replace you with someone better. And that fear, that belief that you're losing a competition, it drives the jealousy to unbearable levels. Walter Riso teaches that comparative jealousy is not actually about the other women. It's about your internalized belief that your value is determined by how you measure up to other women, that you're in competition with every woman for male attention and approval, and that competition is zero-sum. If she's winning, you're losing. If she's attractive, you're not. If she's desirable, you're disposable. But that belief that you're in competition with other women for your worth is a lie. A cultural lie that women are taught from childhood. That your value comes from being chosen. That you're only as valuable as your ability to attract and keep male attention. And as long as you believe that lie, as long as you're measuring your worth by comparison to other women, the jealousy will never stop. Let me tell you about Patricia. She's 58. She's been married for 30 years. And for the last 10 years, she's been consumed by comparative jealousy. Every time her husband talked to a woman, Patricia compared. Every time he looked at a woman, Patricia panicked. She'd ask him constantly, "Do you think she's attractive? Would you rather be with someone like her?" And her husband, exhausted by the constant reassurance she needed, started withdrawing, which made Patricia more jealous, more comparative, more desperate. At 58, Patricia's therapist helped her see what was really happening. Patricia wasn't jealous because her husband was interested in other women. He wasn't. He was devoted to her. Patricia was jealous because she believed her value depended on being more attractive than every other woman. And since she was aging and other women weren't, she believed she was losing her value, her worth, her right to be loved. The jealousy wasn't about her husband. It was about her belief that she wasn't enough anymore. So Patricia started working not on trusting her husband more, but on building her sense of worth independent of comparison. She stopped asking if he found other women attractive. She started working on finding herself valuable regardless of how she measured up to anyone else. And slowly, over months, the comparative jealousy loosened its grip. Not because her husband changed, but because Patricia stopped believing her worth came from winning a competition with other women. Patricia told me, "I spent 10 years destroying my marriage with jealousy. But the jealousy was never about my husband or other women. It was about me believing I was in a competition I was losing. Once I stopped competing, the jealousy stopped controlling me." That's the first type. Comparative jealousy. And if this is your primary type, the work is not about other women. It's about your relationship with yourself and the belief that your worth comes from comparison. Type 2. Possessive jealousy. The need to control. The second type of jealousy is possessive jealousy. This is when your jealousy manifests as a need to control your partner, to know where they are at all times, to monitor who they're talking to limit their interactions with other people, to check their phone, their email, their social media, to create rules about what they can and can't do, to make them prove their loyalty constantly. This type of jealousy is driven by the belief that if you don't control your partner, they'll leave. That freedom equals betrayal. That the only way to keep them is to monitor them constantly. Possessive jealousy manifests in specific behaviors. You call or text constantly when your partner is out. Not because you need something, but because you need to know they're where they said they'd be. You check their phone when they're in the shower. You monitor their social media to see who they're interacting with. You create rules. Don't talk to women at work unless it's absolutely necessary. Don't go out without me. Tell me everywhere you're going. And you justify this by saying you just need reassurance. You just need to feel secure. But what you're really doing is trying to control their behavior because you believe that control equals safety. And here's what makes possessive jealousy particularly destructive. It creates the very thing you're trying to prevent. Your partner feels suffocated, distrusted, controlled, and that makes them want to withdraw, to create distance, to escape the surveillance. And their withdrawal triggers more jealousy in you, more need for control, more monitoring, more rules, until the relationship becomes a prison where one person is the warden and the other is the prisoner. And eventually the prisoner leaves, not because they were planning to all along, but because being controlled is unbearable. Walter Riso teaches that possessive jealousy is rooted in what's called anxious attachment. This is an attachment style that develops when you learn in childhood that love is unpredictable, that people leave, that you can't trust anyone to stay, so you develop strategies to keep people from leaving. You become hypervigilant. You try to control their behavior. You monitor constantly. You believe that if you can just control them enough, they won't be able to leave. But control doesn't create security. It creates resentment. And resentment destroys relationships. And possessive jealousy after 50 is intensified by the fear that if this relationship ends, you won't find another one. You're not just trying to keep this person because you love them. You're trying to keep them because you believe they're your last chance, that if they leave, you'll be alone forever. So the stakes feel impossibly high, and the need for control becomes desperate. But that desperation is exactly what drives them away. Let me tell you about Sharon. She's 64. She's been with her partner for 15 years. And for the last 5 years, Sharon has been consumed by possessive jealousy. She checks his phone daily. She monitors his social media. She calls him multiple times when he's out. She's created rules about where he can go and who he can see. And her partner, who has never been unfaithful, who loves her, is exhausted. He feels like he's being treated like a criminal, like he's constantly under surveillance. And he's starting to resent her. At 64, Sharon's therapist helped her see the pattern. Sharon wasn't controlling her partner because he'd given her reason not to trust him. She was controlling him because she didn't trust herself. She didn't trust that she was lovable enough for him to stay without being controlled. She didn't trust that if he had freedom, he'd choose her. So she was trying to eliminate his ability to choose, to make staying the only option by controlling his behavior. But her partner didn't want to be with someone out of lack of options. He wanted to be with someone because he chose her. And Sharon's control was taking away his ability to choose her freely. So Sharon started working on trusting herself instead of controlling him. She started building her sense of worth so that she believed she was worth choosing. She stopped checking his phone, stopped calling constantly, stopped monitoring. And something unexpected happened. Her partner, no longer feeling suffocated, came closer, started sharing more, became more affectionate, because he finally felt free to choose her instead of controlled into staying. Sharon told me, "I spent 5 years trying to control him into staying. But control doesn't create love. It creates resentment. The moment I stopped controlling and started trusting, he chose me freely. And that feels better than anything I could have forced." That's the second type, possessive jealousy. And if this is yours, the work is not about controlling your partner more effectively. It's about learning to trust yourself enough that you don't need to control them. Type 3, retroactive jealousy, obsessed with the past. The third type of jealousy is retroactive jealousy. This is when your jealousy is focused not on present threats, but on your partner's past, their ex-partners, their past relationships, their sexual history. You're consumed by thoughts of who they were with before you, what they did with those people, whether those experiences were better than what they have with you. And you can't let it go. You ask questions constantly. You want details you know will hurt you, but you can't stop asking. You compare yourself to people who are no longer in the picture. And you torture yourself with scenarios that happened years, sometimes decades, before you even met. Retroactive jealousy manifests in specific ways. You ask about their exes constantly. What did they look like? What did you do together? Was the sex better with them? Did you love them more than you love me? And when your partner answers, trying to reassure you, you use the information to torture yourself. You imagine them with their ex. You compare yourself and find yourself lacking. You convince yourself that their past relationships were better, more passionate, more meaningful than what they have with you. And no amount of reassurance from your partner makes it stop. Because the jealousy isn't about the past. It's about your current insecurity. Walter Riso teaches that retroactive jealousy is the most irrational type because it's focused on something that cannot possibly be a threat. These people are gone. The relationships are over. There's no actual danger. But the jealousy persists because it's not really about those people. It's about your belief that you're not enough, that your partner settled for you, that they're with you not because you're who they want, but because they couldn't have who they really wanted. And that belief, that you're second choice, it drives you to obsess about the past as proof. And retroactive jealousy after 50 has a specific quality. You're not just jealous of who they were with before. You're jealous that they had them when they were younger, when your partner was younger, when everything was new and exciting and passionate. And you believe that what they have with you now, when you're both older, when the passion has settled, When bodies have aged, it can't compare. That you're getting the diminished version of them, and they're getting the diminished version of you. And that thought is unbearable. Let me tell you about Diane. She's 62. She met her partner 5 years ago. He'd been married before. And Diane is consumed by retroactive jealousy about his ex-wife. She asks about her constantly, looks at old photos, compares herself, asks about their sex life, asks if he loved her more. And her partner, who chose to divorce his ex-wife, who chose to be with Diane, is exhausted. He's told her 1,000 times that relationship is over, that he's with Diane because he wants to be. But Diane can't believe him, because she doesn't believe she's good enough to be first choice. At 62, Diane's therapist helped her see what was really happening. The jealousy about the ex-wife wasn't about the ex-wife. It was about Diane's belief that because she's 62, because this is a second relationship for both of them, because they're both older now, what they have must be less than what came before. Must be settling. Must be second best. And that belief made her obsess about the past as proof. So Diane started working on believing that what she has now is valuable, not despite being later in life, but because of it. That a relationship at 62 with two people who know themselves, who've learned from past mistakes, who choose each other with eyes wide open, that's not less than a first marriage. It's different, and in many ways, more. And as Diane started believing that what she has now is valuable, the obsession with his past loosened, because she stopped needing to prove she was better than his ex-wife. She started accepting that she's different, and different is not a competition. Diane told me, I spent 5 years obsessed with a woman who's not even in the picture, but the obsession was never about her. It was about me not believing I was enough. Once I started believing I was enough, his past stopped mattering. That's the third type, retroactive jealousy. And if this is yours, the work is not about his past. It's about your current belief in your own value. The 5 psychological roots of jealousy after 50. Now that you understand what type of jealousy you're dealing with, we need to go deeper. We need to understand where the jealousy actually comes from. Because jealousy doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It has roots. Deep psychological roots that were planted years ago, sometimes decades ago, and have been growing ever since. And until you understand these roots, until you can see where your jealousy actually comes from, you'll keep treating symptoms instead of causes. You'll keep trying to manage the jealousy instead of transforming it. And management is exhausting. Transformation is healing. Walter Riso teaches that jealousy after 50 is almost always rooted in one or more of 5 specific psychological patterns. These are not character flaws. These are not proof that you're a bad person. These are wounds. Adaptive strategies you developed to protect yourself that are now hurting you. And understanding which roots are feeding your jealousy is the key to pulling them out. So let's go through each one. Let's see which ones are yours. And let's understand how they're creating the jealousy that's controlling your life. Root 1. Anxious attachment from childhood. The first and deepest root of jealousy is anxious attachment. This is an attachment style that develops in childhood based on how your primary caregivers related to you. If your parents' love was inconsistent, if affection was given one day and withheld the next, if you had to work hard to get attention or approval, if you learned that love was unpredictable and people could leave without warning, you developed anxious attachment. You learned that relationships are unstable, that people can't be trusted to stay, that you have to constantly monitor for signs of abandonment, and that learning, that deep childhood wound, creates lifelong jealousy. Anxious attachment manifests as what psychologists call hyperactivating strategies. You're constantly scanning for threats, constantly checking for signs that your partner is losing interest, constantly seeking reassurance, constantly testing their love by creating situations where they have to prove they care. And this isn't conscious. You're not deliberately trying to be difficult. You're responding to a nervous system that learned in childhood that love disappears without warning, and the only way to keep it is to stay vigilant. And here's what makes anxious attachment particularly painful after 50. You've been doing this for 50 years. You've had multiple relationships where your jealousy and need for reassurance eventually pushed the person away, which confirmed your belief that people leave, which made you more anxious in the next relationship, which pushed that person away. It's been a self-fulfilling prophecy for decades, and now you're exhausted. Exhausted from the constant vigilance, exhausted from the constant fear, exhausted from pushing away the people you're trying to hold on to. Walter Riso teaches that anxious attachment is not your fault. You didn't choose it. It was created by your childhood experiences, but it is your responsibility to heal it. Because if you don't, it will keep destroying your relationships. And healing anxious attachment requires understanding that what was true when you were 3 is not true now. When you were 3, if your parents withdrew love, that was life-threatening. You were completely dependent. You couldn't survive without them. But you're not 3 anymore. You're an adult who can survive without any specific person. And your partner withdrawing is not death. It's just loss. Painful, yes, but survivable. Let me tell you about Lisa. She's 59. She's been married for 25 years, and she's been jealous for all 25 of them, constantly checking on her husband, constantly needing reassurance, constantly imagining worst-case scenarios, and her husband, who has never been unfaithful, who loves her, is exhausted. He's told her 1,000 times he's not leaving, but Lisa can't believe him. Because deep down, she learned in childhood that people say they'll stay and then they leave. At 59, Lisa started therapy to work on her anxious attachment. Her therapist helped her see that the jealousy wasn't about her husband. It was about her mother, who was emotionally inconsistent, who was warm one day and cold the next, who Lisa could never predict or trust. And that pattern, that childhood experience of love being unpredictable, created a nervous system that's been on high alert for abandonment for 50 years. Lisa's jealousy was a 50-year-old trying to protect 3-year-old Lisa from the abandonment she feared. So Lisa started working on healing the childhood wound instead of managing the adult jealousy. She did therapy specifically for attachment wounds. She learned to recognize when she was reacting to childhood fears instead of current reality. She practiced trusting her husband even when her nervous system was screaming that he was about to leave. And slowly, over a year of consistent work, the jealousy started to quiet. Not because her husband changed, but because Lisa healed the wound that was creating the jealousy. Lisa told me, "I spent 25 years being jealous of threats that didn't exist. But the jealousy was never about my husband. It was about my childhood. Once I healed that wound, the jealousy stopped controlling me." That's the first root. Anxious attachment. And if this is your root, the work is not about your partner. It's about healing your childhood wound. Root 2. Low self-esteem intensified by aging. The second root of jealousy, particularly powerful for women over 50, is low self-esteem that's been intensified by aging. You've always struggled with feeling not good enough, not pretty enough, not smart enough, not interesting enough. But those feelings were manageable when you were younger. You could tell yourself you'd grow into confidence. You'd achieve things that would prove your worth. You had time. But now you're 50, 60, 70. And instead of growing into confidence, you feel less confident than ever. Because now you're aging in a culture that tells you aging women have no value. And the low self-esteem you've carried your whole life has been amplified by the message that you're past your expiration date. This intensified low self-esteem creates jealousy because you genuinely believe other women are better than you. Not just different, better, more valuable, more worthy of love. And if your partner had a choice, which you assume they do, they'd obviously choose someone better, someone younger, someone more attractive, someone who hasn't aged out of value. So every interaction your partner has with another woman feels like an opportunity for them to realize they could do better. And that belief that you're not good enough and everyone else is better creates constant jealousy. Walter Riso teaches that low self-esteem is not fixed by external validation. Your partner can tell you you're beautiful 1,000 times, but if you don't believe you're valuable, their words won't penetrate. You'll discount them. Assume they're lying or just being nice. Assume they're with you out of obligation or laziness, not genuine desire. And that assumption creates jealousy. Because if you believe they're only with you because they haven't found someone better yet, every other woman becomes a threat. And here's what makes this route particularly destructive after 50. The culture is confirming your low self-esteem. Everywhere you look, the message is that older women are invisible, undesirable, worthless. So your internal belief that you're not good enough is being validated externally. And that makes it almost impossible to challenge. Because how can you believe you're valuable when every magazine, every movie, every advertisement is telling you you're not? Let me tell you about Kimberly. She's 61. She's been with her partner for 10 years. And she's consumed by jealousy. Not because he's done anything wrong, but because Kimberly looks at herself and sees someone who's aging. Someone whose body doesn't look like it used to. Someone who feels invisible in public. And she looks at younger women and thinks, why would he stay with me when he could have someone like that? And that thought creates constant jealousy. She's jealous of every woman he talks to, every woman he looks at, because she genuinely believes any of them would be better than her. At 61, Kimberly's therapist helped her see that the jealousy was rooted in her own low self-esteem, not her partner's behavior. Her partner had never compared her to other women, had never indicated he wanted someone else, had never made her feel like she wasn't enough. Kimberly was doing all of that to herself. She was comparing herself to other women and finding herself lacking, and then projecting that comparison onto her partner, assuming he was making the same comparison. So Kimberly started working on building her sense of worth, independent of age or appearance. She started listing things about herself that were valuable that had nothing to do with youth. Her kindness, her intelligence, her humor, her depth, her life experience, her wisdom. And she started challenging the cultural message that only young women have value. She started looking for examples of older women who were valued, desired, celebrated. And slowly, as her self-esteem grew, the jealousy diminished, because she stopped believing every other woman was better than her. Kimberly told me, I was jealous because I didn't value myself, and I assumed my partner didn't value me either. But he did. I was the only one who thought I wasn't good enough. That's the second root. Low self-esteem intensified by aging. And if this is your root, the work is not about getting your partner to validate you more. It's about learning to value yourself. Root 3. Trauma from past betrayal. The third root of jealousy is past trauma. Specifically, the trauma of being betrayed in a previous relationship. You were cheated on, lied to, abandoned. And that betrayal left a wound so deep that you've never fully healed from it. And now, in your current relationship, even though your current partner has done nothing wrong, you're hypervigilant. You're constantly scanning for signs of betrayal. You're constantly expecting to be hurt again. Because you were hurt before. And that past trauma is creating present jealousy. This type of jealousy is particularly challenging because it feels justified. You're not making up threats. Betrayal is real. It happened to you. So being vigilant feels reasonable, protective, wise. You tell yourself you're just being careful. You're not going to be fooled again. But what you're actually doing is punishing your current partner for the crimes of a past partner. You're treating them as guilty until proven innocent, and that's not fair to them, and it's destroying your relationship. Walter Riso teaches that trauma-based jealousy requires specific healing, because this jealousy is not about low self-esteem or attachment wounds. It's about an actual traumatic event that taught you that people betray. That trust is dangerous. that letting your guard down leads to devastation. And until you process that trauma, until you grieve it and heal from it, you'll keep bringing it into every new relationship. You'll keep seeing threats that don't exist because you're looking at your current relationship through the lens of your past trauma. And trauma-based jealousy after 50 is intensified by the fear that you don't have time to recover from another betrayal. When you were 30 and got cheated on, you were devastated. But you recovered. You found someone else. You had time. But now you're 60, and the thought of being betrayed again, of having to start over again, of losing more years to someone who doesn't deserve them, that feels unbearable. So the stakes feel higher, the vigilance feels more necessary, and the jealousy becomes more intense. Let me tell you about Michelle. She's 63. She's in a wonderful relationship with a man who adores her. But Michelle is consumed by jealousy. She checks his phone, questions him constantly, imagines scenarios where he's cheating. And her partner is bewildered. He's done nothing to earn this distrust. But Michelle can't stop. Because 20 years ago, her first husband had an affair. And that betrayal was so devastating, so traumatic, that Michelle never fully healed from it. And now, 2 decades later, she's still living as if that betrayal is about to happen again. At 63, Michelle finally sought therapy, specifically for the trauma of her first husband's affair. And her therapist helped her see that she'd never processed it. She'd just moved on, found someone new, but the wound was still open, still bleeding. And every time her current partner did something that remotely reminded her of her ex-husband, the wound reopened. And she reacted not to what was actually happening, but to what happened 20 years ago. So Michelle did trauma therapy, EMDR specifically. She processed the betrayal, grieved it, felt the pain she'd been avoiding for 20 years. And as she healed the old wound, the present jealousy diminished. Not because her partner changed, but because Michelle stopped seeing him through the lens of past trauma. She started seeing him as he actually was. Someone trustworthy, someone who was not her ex-husband. Michelle told me, "I spent years being jealous of threats that didn't exist. But I couldn't see they didn't exist because I was still living in the trauma of what did exist 20 years ago. Once I healed that trauma, I could finally see my current relationship clearly. That's the third root, past betrayal trauma. And if this is your root, the work is processing and healing the past so it stops controlling your present. Root 4, projection of your own dissatisfaction or temptation. The fourth root of jealousy is projection. This is when you're jealous not because your partner is tempted or dissatisfied, but because you are. You're the one who's unhappy in the relationship. You're the one who finds other people attractive. You're the one who fantasizes about leaving or cheating. But instead of acknowledging those feelings, instead of admitting them to yourself, you project them onto your partner. You accuse them of what you're actually feeling. You imagine they want what you want. And that projection creates jealousy. This type of jealousy is particularly insidious because it's completely unconscious. You're not deliberately lying. You genuinely believe your partner is the one who's tempted or dissatisfied. You have no conscious awareness that you're projecting your own feelings onto them. But psychologically, that's what's happening. And the jealousy you feel is not about them. It's about you. About feelings you're not willing to acknowledge or face. Walter Riso teaches that projection-based jealousy is a defense mechanism. You're protecting yourself from having to face uncomfortable truths about yourself. That you're unhappy. That you're attracted to someone else. That you're thinking about leaving. Those truths feel dangerous, either because they conflict with your self-image or because acting on them feels too risky. So instead of acknowledging them, you project them onto your partner. You make them the one with the problem. And then you can feel jealous and suspicious without having to acknowledge your own feelings. And projection-based jealousy after 50 has a specific quality. You're not just projecting attraction or dissatisfaction. You're projecting the fear that the relationship isn't enough anymore, that you want something different for your remaining years, that staying feels like settling, but admitting that feels too scary, too selfish, too destabilizing. So you project it onto your partner. You become convinced they're the one who wants out. They're the one who's dissatisfied. They're the one who's going to leave. And you become jealous of the life you imagine they want without you, which is actually the life you want without them. Let me tell you about Angela. She's 57. She's been married for 30 years, and for the last 5 years, she's been intensely jealous. She's convinced her husband is having an affair with a woman at his work. She has no evidence. He's denied it repeatedly. But Angela is certain. She's obsessed with this woman, imagines them together, accuses her husband constantly, and her marriage is falling apart. At 57, Angela's therapist helped her see something uncomfortable. Angela wasn't jealous because her husband was having an affair. He wasn't. Angela was jealous because she was attracted to someone, a man she'd met through volunteer work. And instead of acknowledging that attraction, instead of examining what it meant about her marriage, Angela projected it onto her husband. She made him the one who was tempted, the one who was emotionally elsewhere, the one who was having an affair, because that felt safer than admitting her own feelings. Once Angela acknowledged the truth, the jealousy about her husband evaporated, because it had never been about him. It had been about her own unacknowledged dissatisfaction and attraction. And once she could face that honestly, she could decide what to do about it. She could work on her marriage, or she could leave. But she couldn't do either while projecting her feelings onto her husband and becoming jealous of problems he didn't have. Angela told me, "I spent 5 years accusing my husband of what I was actually feeling, and I had no idea I was doing it. The jealousy felt so real, but it was never about him. It was about me not being willing to face my own truth." That's the fourth root, projection. And if this is your root, the work is getting honest about your own feelings instead of projecting them onto your partner. Root 5, existential fear of abandonment after 50. The fifth and final root of jealousy is existential fear. This is different from anxious attachment or past trauma. This is the fear that comes specifically from being over 50 and facing the reality that time is finite. That if this relationship ends, you might not find another one. That you might spend the rest of your life alone. That you're running out of time to have the love and companionship you want. And that fear, that existential terror of ending up alone, creates intense jealousy. Because every threat to this relationship feels like a threat to your last chance at love. This type of jealousy is rooted not in past wounds, but in future fears. You look ahead and you see limited time, limited options, and you panic. You think, this might be it. This might be my last relationship, my last chance, and I can't lose it. And that panic makes you hypervigilant, desperate, willing to tolerate things you shouldn't tolerate just to keep this relationship. And paradoxically, jealous of any threat that might take it away, even when there is no actual threat. Walter Riso teaches that existential fear-based jealousy is about mortality, about facing the reality that you have fewer years ahead than behind, and the desire to spend those years with someone instead of alone. And that desire is not wrong, but when it becomes fear, when it becomes desperation, when it makes you jealous and controlling and obsessive, it destroys the very thing you're trying to preserve, because nobody wants to be with someone who's clinging to them out of desperation, who's staying not because they choose to, but because they're terrified of the alternative. And this fear is unique to women over 50 because younger women don't face the same temporal urgency. A 30-year-old who gets jealous and her relationship ends, she has decades to find someone else. But a 60-year-old faces a different reality. Time is more limited, options feel more limited, and the fear of spending the remaining years alone feels more acute. So the jealousy is more intense, the desperation is more palpable, and the relationship suffers under the weight of all that fear. Let me tell you about Deborah. She's 66. She's been with her partner for 8 years, and she's become increasingly jealous. Not because he's done anything, but because Deborah is terrified. terrified that if he leaves, she'll die alone. That at 66, no one else will want her. That this is her last chance. And that terror makes her jealous of everything. Every woman he talks to is a threat. Every moment he spends not with her is a moment he might realize he wants someone else. And her jealousy is suffocating him. At 66, Deborah's therapist helped her see that the jealousy was about her fear of the future, not her partner's present behavior. Deborah was so terrified of being alone for her remaining years that she was trying to control her partner into staying. But her desperation was pushing him away. He felt like he was being held hostage by her fear, and he was starting to resent it. So Deborah did the hardest work. She faced the fear. She asked herself, what if he does leave? What if I do end up alone? And she realized, I would survive. It would be painful, but I would survive. And once she accepted that she'd be okay, even if her worst fear came true, the jealousy loosened. Because she stopped clinging to him out of terror. She could finally be with him out of choice. And that changed everything. Deborah told me, I was so afraid of being alone that I was destroying my relationship trying to prevent it. Once I accepted that I'd survive even if I ended up alone, I could finally be present with him without all the fear and jealousy. That's the fifth root. Existential fear. And if this is your root, the work is facing your fear of the future and discovering you'll be okay no matter what happens. 10 practical tools to transform your jealousy. Starting today. Now we get to the most important part. Understanding where your jealousy comes from is critical. Knowing your jealousy type and identifying your psychological roots, that's necessary. But understanding alone doesn't transform jealousy. You can know intellectually that your jealousy is rooted in anxious attachment or low self-esteem and still feel consumed by it. Because jealousy doesn't live in your intellect. It lives in your body, in your nervous system, in your automatic reactions. So transforming jealousy requires practical tools. Daily practices you can use starting today to interrupt the jealousy patterns and replace them with something healthier. Walter Riso teaches that transforming jealousy is a process that requires consistent practice, not grand gestures, not one-time insights, but small daily actions repeated over weeks and months until new patterns replace old ones. These 10 tools are not theoretical concepts. They're concrete practices you can implement today. Some will resonate more than others depending on your jealousy type and your roots. But all of them, when practiced consistently, have the power to transform jealousy from a destructive force that controls you into useful information that helps you grow. Tool 1. The Reality Check Protocol. The first tool is what Riso calls the Reality Check Protocol. This is a specific process you use every single time you feel jealousy rising. Because most jealousy is based not on what's actually happening, but on what you imagine might happen. Your partner talks to another woman, and your mind immediately creates a story. They're attracted to each other, they're flirting, they're going to have an affair, he's going to leave you. And within seconds, you're responding not to what actually happened, which is a conversation, but to the catastrophic story your mind created. The Reality Check Protocol interrupts that process. The moment you feel jealousy, you stop. You don't act on it. You don't say anything. You don't check their phone. You pause. And you ask yourself 3 specific questions. First, what actually happened? Not what I think happened or what I imagine happened, but what did I actually see or hear with my own eyes and ears? Write it down if you need to. Be specific. Second, what story am I telling myself about what happened? What am I imagining or assuming or predicting? Third, what evidence do I have that this story is true? Not feelings, not fears, but actual evidence. Most of the time, when you do this protocol, you'll discover something. What actually happened is minimal. Your partner had a conversation, looked at someone, came home late from work. But the story you created is massive. They're having an affair. They want someone else. they're going to leave. And the evidence for that story is zero. You have feelings, you have fears, but you have no actual evidence that the catastrophic story is true. Let me give you a concrete example. Your partner comes home from work and mentions that a new woman started at his office and they had lunch together with the team. Immediately, jealousy rises, and your mind creates a story. She's young, she's attractive, they're going to have an affair, so you do the reality check protocol. What actually happened? He told me about having lunch with coworkers, including a new woman. What story am I telling myself? That he's attracted to her and they're going to have an affair. What evidence do I have? None. He voluntarily told me about the lunch. He mentioned her in passing along with other coworkers. He came home on time. There's no actual evidence of anything inappropriate. And once you see that clearly, once you separate what happened from the story you created, the jealousy often diminishes. Not completely. The feeling is still there, but its intensity drops because you're no longer feeding it with catastrophic stories. You're staying with what's actually true instead of what you fear might be true. Practice this protocol every single time jealousy arises. And over time, your brain will start to automatically separate reality from story. And jealousy will lose much of its power. Tool 2, the self-worth inventory. The second tool addresses the root of most jealousy, which is low self-worth. This is a daily practice where you actively build evidence of your value that has nothing to do with comparison to other women or validation from your partner. Because as long as your worth depends on being better than other women or being chosen by your partner, you'll always be vulnerable to jealousy. But if your worth is internal, based on who you actually are, jealousy loses its foundation. The self-worth inventory is simple but powerful. Every evening before bed, you write down 3 things. First, one thing you did today that reflects your values. Not accomplishments, not things other people noticed, but something you did that aligns with who you want to be. You were kind to someone. You were honest. You kept a commitment to yourself. You helped someone. Second, one thing about yourself that's valuable, that has nothing to do with appearance or age, your intelligence, your humor, your compassion, your creativity, your resilience. Third, one thing you're grateful for about your life that exists independent of your relationship. Your health, your home, your friends, your interests, your freedom. You do this every single day, and at first it will feel forced, artificial. You might not believe what you're writing, but you write it anyway. And over weeks and months, something shifts. You start to internalize that you have value beyond your relationship, beyond your appearance, beyond comparison to other women. You start to build a sense of self-worth that's yours, that nobody can take away. That doesn't depend on whether your partner looks at another woman. Let me tell you how this worked for Sandra. She's 60. She was consumed by comparative jealousy. Every woman was a threat. Every interaction her partner had with another woman triggered panic. Her therapist gave her the self-worth inventory assignment, and Sandra resisted. She thought it was stupid, simplistic, but she did it anyway because she was desperate. For the first month, Sandra's entries were minimal, forced, but she kept doing it. And slowly, something changed. She started noticing things about herself she'd been ignoring: her kindness, her intelligence, her sense of humor, her loyalty, her strength. And as she built this internal evidence of her worth, the comparative jealousy started to diminish, because she stopped believing other women were better than her. She started believing she had value, different value than others, but value nonetheless. And once she believed that, seeing her partner talk to another woman didn't feel like a threat anymore. Sandra told me, "I thought writing 3 things every day was too simple to work." But it did, not immediately. But over time, I started believing I was valuable. And once I believed that, the jealousy stopped controlling me. That's the second tool, the self-worth inventory. Daily practice of building internal worth. Tool 3, the jealousy journal. The third tool is the jealousy journal. This is a specific type of journaling where you track your jealousy patterns to discover what's actually triggering them, because most women think their jealousy is random or constant. But it's not. It has patterns, specific triggers, specific contexts. And once you identify the patterns, you can address them specifically instead of feeling like jealousy controls you all the time. The jealousy journal has a specific format. Every time you feel significant jealousy, you write 5 things. 1. What triggered it? Be specific. What actually happened right before the jealousy arose? 2. What time of day was it? 3. What else was happening in your life? Were you stressed about something else? Tired? Hungry? 4. What story did your mind create? What catastrophic scenario did you imagine? 5. What did you do in response? Did you act on the jealousy or did you manage it? You do this for 2 weeks, and at the end of 2 weeks, you look for patterns, and you'll almost always find them. Maybe your jealousy is worse in the evening when you're tired. Maybe it's triggered specifically when your partner is on his phone. Maybe it's worse when you're stressed about work or money and has nothing to do with your partner. Maybe it's worse during certain times of the month when your hormones fluctuate. Maybe it's triggered by specific types of women, younger women or women in certain professions, which tells you about your specific insecurities. Once you see the patterns, you can intervene strategically. If your jealousy is worse when you're tired, you can prioritize sleep and know that evening jealousy is not reliable information. If it's triggered when your partner is on his phone, you can address that specifically instead of being jealous all the time. If it's worse when you're stressed about other things, you can recognize that the jealousy is about your stress, not your relationship. Let me tell you about Jennifer. She's 58. She thought she was jealous all the time, constantly. But when she started keeping the jealousy journal, she discovered something. Her jealousy was almost exclusively triggered in the evenings. During the day, she was fine. But after 7 p.m., the jealousy became overwhelming. And as she tracked it, she realized why. She was exhausted by evening. And when she was exhausted, her anxiety spiked. And anxious Jennifer created catastrophic stories that calm Jennifer knew weren't true. So Jennifer made one change. She went to bed earlier. And she instituted a rule for herself. No serious conversations or decisions after 8 p.m. when she knew her anxiety was unreliable. And that one change, based on identifying the pattern in her jealousy journal, reduced her jealousy by at least 60%, because most of it was exhaustion-driven anxiety, not relationship-driven jealousy. Jennifer told me, "I thought I was jealous all the time, but I was actually just tired in the evenings." Once I saw the pattern and addressed it, most of the jealousy disappeared. That's the third tool, the jealousy journal. Track it, find the patterns, address them specifically. Tool 4, the redirect practice. The fourth tool is the redirect practice. This is a cognitive technique you use when jealous thoughts start spiraling. Because jealousy often starts with one thought that leads to another, until you're convinced your worst fears are true. You see your partner talking to a woman. You think, she's attractive. Then, he probably thinks she's attractive too. Then, he probably wishes he was with her. Then, he's probably going to pursue her. Then, he's probably going to leave me. And within minutes, you've gone from one neutral observation to complete catastrophe. The redirect practice interrupts that spiral. The moment you notice a jealous thought, you don't try to suppress it or fight it. You acknowledge it and then deliberately redirect. You say to yourself, "Okay, that's a jealous thought. I see it." And then you redirect to something true and neutral. Not positive affirmations that you don't believe, but neutral truth that you can't dispute. For example, the jealous thought is, "He's attracted to her." The redirect is, "I don't know what he's thinking. I only know what I'm thinking. And I'm thinking catastrophic thoughts because I'm anxious." The jealous thought is, He's going to leave me for someone younger. The redirect is, he's still here. He's been here for years. Right now, in this moment, he's here. That's what's actually true. You practice this redirect every single time a jealous thought appears. And at first, the jealous thought will come right back. You redirect, and seconds later, the jealous thought returns. So you redirect again, and again, and again. It's like training a puppy. The puppy keeps running to the wrong place, and you keep gently redirecting it to the right place. Eventually, the puppy learns. Eventually, your brain learns. Let me tell you about Melissa. She's 62. Her jealous thoughts were relentless. Constant spirals that took her from one small trigger to complete catastrophe in seconds. Her therapist taught her the redirect practice, and Melissa was skeptical. She thought, how is just redirecting my thoughts going to stop jealousy? But she tried it because nothing else had worked. At first, it was exhausting. She was redirecting 50 times a day. Jealous thought, redirect. Jealous thought, redirect. Over and over. But after 2 weeks, something shifted. The jealous thoughts were still there, but they were less frequent, less intense, and easier to redirect. After a month, the spirals were significantly reduced, not gone, but manageable. And Melissa realized, I'm not trying to eliminate jealous thoughts, I'm just not letting them spiral into catastrophe. Melissa told me the redirect practice felt too simple to work, but it did. Not by eliminating jealousy, but by stopping the spiral before it took me to catastrophe. That's the fourth tool. Redirect jealous thoughts to neutral truth, over and over until it becomes automatic. Tool 5. The vulnerability conversation. The fifth tool is one of the hardest but most powerful. It's having a specific type of conversation with your partner where you're vulnerable about your jealousy instead of accusatory. Because most women handle jealousy by accusing. You're looking at her, you're attracted to her, you're going to cheat. And accusations create defensiveness. Defensiveness creates conflict. And conflict reinforces your belief that something is wrong. But vulnerability creates connection. And connection is the antidote to jealousy. The vulnerability conversation has a specific structure. You choose a calm time when you're both relaxed, not in the middle of a jealousy episode. And you say 3 things. First, I need to talk to you about something I'm struggling with. Not something you're doing wrong, something I'm struggling with. That frames it correctly from the start. Second, I feel jealous sometimes. Not because of anything you've done, but because of my own insecurity, past trauma, fear. Be honest about the root. Third, what I need from you is patience and reassurance while I work on this. Not for you to change your behavior, but for you to understand what I'm dealing with. This conversation does 2 things. It lets your partner know what's happening with you without making them the villain. And it enlists them as your ally instead of making them your adversary. Because when you accuse, your partner becomes defensive. But when you're vulnerable, your partner usually becomes supportive. And that support actually helps reduce the jealousy because you feel safer in the relationship instead of threatened. Let me tell you about Amy. She's 59. She'd been handling her jealousy by accusing her partner constantly. And their relationship was deteriorating. Every conversation became a fight. He was defensive. She was accusatory. Nothing was getting better. Her therapist suggested the vulnerability conversation, and Amy resisted. She thought, why should I be vulnerable about my jealousy when he's the one causing it? But Amy was desperate, so she tried it. She had the conversation using the exact structure. And something unexpected happened. Her partner's entire demeanor changed. He stopped being defensive and became concerned. He said, I didn't know you were struggling with this. I thought you were just trying to control me. But if it's about your insecurity, I want to help. How can I help? And that conversation transformed their dynamic. Amy stopped accusing. Her partner stopped defending. They became a team working on Amy's jealousy together instead of adversaries fighting about it. Amy told me, "I spent years making my jealousy his problem. But when I made it my struggle that I needed his help with, everything changed. He became supportive instead of defensive, and that support actually reduced my jealousy." That's the fifth tool, the vulnerability conversation. Be honest about your struggle and enlist your partner as an ally. Tool 6, the comparison detox. The sixth tool specifically addresses comparative jealousy. It's called the comparison detox, and it's a deliberate practice of stopping all comparison to other women for a set period of time. Because if your jealousy is rooted in constantly comparing yourself to other women, the comparison is the fuel keeping the jealousy alive, and you have to stop feeding it. The comparison detox works like this. You commit to 30 days of no comparison, none. Every time you catch yourself comparing yourself to another woman, you stop immediately. You don't finish the thought. You don't indulge in it. You notice it and you stop. And you replace it with a specific statement. Her worth does not diminish mine. That's it. You don't have to believe it at first. You just say it. And during these 30 days, you avoid content that triggers comparison. You unfollow social media accounts of women you compare yourself to. You don't watch shows or movies that make you feel inadequate. You curate your environment to reduce comparison triggers. And every day, you actively practice appreciating other women without comparing. You see an attractive woman, and instead of comparing, you practice thinking, "She's beautiful. And so am I in a different way." You train your brain to hold space for multiple women to be valuable without it being a competition. Let me tell you about Tracy. She's 61. Her comparative jealousy was destroying her peace. She couldn't see an attractive woman without immediately comparing and feeling inadequate. Her therapist suggested the comparison detox, and Tracy thought 30 days of no comparison was impossible. But she tried. The first week was brutal. Tracy was catching herself comparing constantly, dozens of times a day, but she kept stopping the thought and saying, "Her worth does not diminish mine." By the second week, she was comparing less frequently. By the fourth week, something had shifted. Comparing was no longer automatic. She could see an attractive woman without immediately feeling threatened, and her jealousy had significantly decreased because she wasn't constantly feeding the belief that other women were better than her. Tracy told me, "I didn't believe I could stop comparing. I thought it was just how my brain worked. But with practice, I retrained my brain. And once I stopped comparing, the jealousy lost most of its power." That's the sixth tool, the comparison detox. 30 days of actively stopping comparison and retraining your brain. Tool 7, the anxiety discharge. The seventh tool addresses the physical component of jealousy. Because jealousy is not just a thought pattern, it's a physiological state. Your nervous system is activated. Your body is flooded with stress hormones. Your heart races. Your breathing is shallow. And as long as your body is in that state, your thoughts will be catastrophic, because an activated nervous system creates anxious thoughts. So you have to discharge the physical anxiety before you can think clearly. The anxiety discharge is a specific physical practice you do whenever jealousy creates intense physical anxiety. You don't try to think your way out of it. You move your way out of it. The most effective practice is intense physical movement. You go for a fast walk or run. You do jumping jacks. You dance vigorously. You do anything that requires your body to move intensely for at least 10 minutes. This discharges the stress hormones, brings your nervous system back to baseline. And once your body is calm, your thoughts calm too. Alternatively, if intense movement isn't possible, you use breath work, specifically extended exhale breathing. You breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8. The extended exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which calms anxiety. You do this for 5 minutes, and you'll feel your body physically calm. And when your body calms, the catastrophic jealous thoughts lose their intensity. Let me tell you about Tammy. She's 57. When jealousy hit, her anxiety would spike so high she couldn't function. Her heart would race. She'd feel like she was having a panic attack. And in that state, she'd say things to her partner she'd regret. Her therapist taught her the anxiety discharge, and Tammy was skeptical. She thought, how is exercise going to help jealousy? But she tried it. The next time jealousy spiked and her anxiety went through the roof, instead of immediately confronting her partner, Tammy went for a fast walk. 10 minutes of walking as fast as she could. And when she came back, something had changed. Her body was calm. Her heart rate was normal. And the catastrophic thoughts that had felt so urgent 10 minutes ago now felt manageable. She could think clearly instead of reacting from panic. Tammy made this her rule. When jealousy creates intense anxiety, move first. Discharge the anxiety, then deal with the thoughts. And that one practice prevented countless fights and accusations that would have happened if she'd acted from the anxious state. Tammy told me, I didn't realize how much of my jealousy was just anxiety. Once I learned to discharge the anxiety first, the jealousy became much more manageable. That's the 7th tool, the anxiety discharge. Move your body to calm your nervous system before you try to manage your thoughts. Tool 8, the evidence log. The 8th tool is the evidence log. This is a practice specifically for trauma-based jealousy, where you're constantly expecting betrayal because it happened before. Your brain is stuck in the past, seeing every situation as potential betrayal. And the evidence log helps your brain update its expectations by deliberately collecting evidence that your current partner is trustworthy. The evidence log is simple. You keep a running document on your phone or in a journal. And every single time your partner does something trustworthy, you write it down. They tell you where they're going without you asking. They're transparent about their phone. They introduce you to people in their life. They keep commitments. They're honest, even when it's uncomfortable. You log all of it. And when jealousy strikes, when your brain is creating catastrophic stories based on past betrayal, you read the evidence log. You remind yourself of the actual evidence you have about this person. Not the person who betrayed you before, this person. And over time, your brain starts to update its expectations. It stops automatically assuming betrayal and starts recognizing trustworthiness. Let me tell you about Heather. She's 63. She was betrayed by her ex-husband 20 years ago, and she's been seeing betrayal everywhere ever since, even though her current partner has never given her reason to distrust him. Her therapist suggested the evidence log, and Heather started keeping it. At first, it felt forced. She was writing things like, he texted me when he got to work. He told me about his day, small things, but she kept doing it. And after a month, she had a long list, dozens of instances of trustworthy behavior. And the next time jealousy hit, instead of spiraling into accusation, Heather read the evidence log. And she realized, I'm reacting to what my ex-husband did, not what this man has done. This man has been trustworthy over and over. And that realization stopped the jealousy spiral. Heather told me, I was treating my current partner like he was my ex-husband. But he's not. And keeping the evidence log helped my brain see that. It helped me update my expectations from past betrayal to current trustworthiness. That's the 8th tool, the evidence log. Deliberately collect evidence of trustworthiness to update your brain's expectations. Tool 9, the relationship vision. The 9th tool addresses the fear-based component of jealousy. It's called the relationship vision, and it's a practice where you clarify what you actually want from your relationship instead of just focusing on what you're afraid of losing. Because when you're consumed by jealousy, you're focused entirely on threat, on loss, on what could go wrong. And that focus on threat creates more anxiety, which creates more jealousy. But when you shift your focus to what you're trying to create, to what you actually want, the jealousy often diminishes because you're building something instead of just defending against loss. The relationship vision practice works like this. You take time, maybe 30 minutes in a quiet space, and you write answers to 3 questions. First, what do I actually want this relationship to feel like? Not what I don't want, what I do want. Connection, peace, playfulness, mutual respect. Be specific. Second, what role do I want to play in creating that? Not what I want my partner to do, what I want to do. Third, what would I be doing differently if I wasn't controlled by jealousy? How would I show up? How would I interact? What would change? Then you start living according to the vision instead of the fear. Every day you ask yourself, what's one thing I can do today that aligns with the relationship I want to create? And you do it. Not because your partner deserves it, but because you're creating the relationship you want to be in. And as you shift from defending against loss to creating what you want, the jealousy loses power. Because you're focused on building instead of protecting. Let me tell you about Karen. She's 60. Her jealousy was entirely fear-based. She was terrified of losing her partner, so she was constantly vigilant, constantly defensive, constantly jealous. Her therapist had her do the relationship vision exercise. And Karen realized something. She'd never actually thought about what she wanted her relationship to be. She'd only thought about what she was afraid of losing. So Karen wrote her vision. She wanted a relationship that felt peaceful, playful, and secure. And she realized that her jealousy was creating the opposite: anxiety, tension, and insecurity. So she started making choices based on the vision instead of the fear. When she felt jealous, instead of acting on it, she'd ask herself, what would peaceful, playful, secure Karen do right now? And usually, the answer was not interrogate her partner or check his phone. The answer was trust and engage. And over time, as Karen focused on creating what she wanted instead of defending against what she feared, the jealousy diminished. Because she was building something instead of just protecting something. Karen told me, I spent years focused on not losing him. But when I started focusing on creating the relationship I wanted, the fear of losing him became less important. Because I was too busy building. That's the 9th tool. The relationship vision. Focus on creating what you want instead of defending against what you fear. Tool 10. The professional intervention. The 10th and final tool is knowing when to get professional help. Because some jealousy is too deep, too rooted in trauma, too physiologically embedded to transform on your own. And there's no shame in that. Trauma-based jealousy often requires EMDR or trauma therapy. Attachment-based jealousy often requires attachment-focused therapy. Jealousy that's creating destructive behaviors like stalking or violence requires immediate professional intervention. And jealousy that persists despite your best efforts at self-help might need medication for underlying anxiety or OCD. The guideline is this. If your jealousy is causing you to behave in ways that harm yourself or others, if it's persisting despite consistent practice of these tools, if it's getting worse instead of better, if it's destroying your relationship despite your best efforts, get professional help. This is not failure. This is wisdom. Recognizing that some wounds need professional healing. Professional options include individual therapy with a therapist who specializes in jealousy, anxiety, or trauma. Couples therapy, where you both work on the jealousy dynamic together. EMDR therapy specifically for trauma-based jealousy. Medication evaluation for anxiety that's creating or intensifying jealousy. Support groups for jealousy or anxiety where you can connect with others struggling with the same issue. Let me tell you about Mary. She's 65. She tried everything. Self-help books. These tools. Meditation. Nothing worked. Her retroactive jealousy about her partner's ex-wife was consuming her life. Finally, at her partner's insistence, Mary went to a therapist who specialized in OCD and trauma. And her therapist explained that Mary's jealousy had crossed into obsessive-compulsive territory. She was obsessing about the ex-wife for hours a day. And she needed more than self-help tools. She needed professional treatment. Mary did a combination of EMDR therapy for past trauma and medication for OCD, and within 6 months, the obsessive jealousy that had controlled her for years finally loosened. Not completely gone, but manageable, livable. And Mary realized, I should have gotten professional help years ago. I wasted so much time trying to do this alone. Mary told me, there's no shame in needing professional help. Some jealousy is too deep to heal alone. And getting help is not failure. It's wisdom. That's the 10th tool. Know when to get professional intervention. Some jealousy needs more than self-help. Your jealousy does not have to control you anymore. So here we are. We've walked through the entire landscape of jealousy after 50. We've looked at the 3 types of jealousy that control women. Comparative jealousy, where you're constantly measuring yourself against other women and finding yourself lacking. Possessive jealousy, where you're trying to control your partner because you believe control equals safety. And retroactive jealousy, where you're obsessed with your partner's past because you believe it proves you're not enough. We've explored the 5 psychological roots that create jealousy: anxious attachment from childhood, low self-esteem intensified by aging, trauma from past betrayal, projection of your own dissatisfaction, and existential fear of abandonment after 50. And we've given you 10 specific, practical tools you can use starting today to transform jealousy. The reality check protocol, the self-worth inventory, the jealousy journal, the redirect practice, the vulnerability conversation, the comparison detox, the anxiety discharge, the evidence log, the relationship vision, and knowing when to get professional help. This is not theoretical information. This is a complete system for understanding and transforming jealousy. And if you implement these tools, if you practice them consistently, if you're willing to do the uncomfortable work of facing what's really driving your jealousy, you can transform it, not eliminate it. Jealousy is a human emotion. You'll probably feel it sometimes for the rest of your life, but you can transform it from a destructive force that controls you into useful information that helps you grow, from something that destroys your relationships into something that deepens them, from a prison into a teacher. But I need you to understand something critical. This transformation will not happen passively. It will not happen by just watching this video and hoping things get better. Jealousy is a deeply embedded pattern. It's been running for years, maybe decades. It's wired into your nervous system, connected to old wounds, reinforced by thousands of repetitions. And transforming it requires active, deliberate, consistent work. Daily work. Work that's uncomfortable. Work that requires you to face things about yourself you'd rather avoid. Work that demands patience because change is slow. Walter Riso teaches that the women who successfully transform their jealousy all share one quality: commitment, not to their partner, to themselves. Commitment to doing the work even when it's hard, even when it feels pointless, even when the jealousy comes back strong and you feel like you're not making progress. Because transformation is not linear. You'll have good days where the jealousy is quiet and you feel hopeful. And you'll have terrible days where the jealousy is as intense as ever and you feel like you've made no progress. But if you keep practicing, if you keep using the tools, if you keep choosing growth over comfort, the trajectory over weeks and months is toward freedom. And here's what I can promise you: if you do this work, you will not regret it. I have never met a woman who did the deep work of transforming her jealousy and said, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd stayed jealous and controlled and miserable. That never happens. What happens is this. Women look back and say, I wish I'd done this sooner. I wasted so much time being consumed by jealousy, so much energy, so much peace. And now that I've transformed it, now that I'm free, I can't believe I lived that way for so long. But you can't get to that freedom without going through the work. And the work starts with honesty. Brutal honesty about what type of jealousy you have. What root is feeding it? What it's costing you? Because most women minimize their jealousy. They tell themselves it's not that bad. Other people have it worse. It's normal. But if you're here, if you watch this entire video, your jealousy is bad enough that you're looking for help. And that means it's bad enough to deserve serious attention. Bad enough to do the work. So here's what I need you to do. Right now, before you close this video, before you move on to something else, go to the comments. And I want you to answer 2 questions. First, which type of jealousy is yours? Comparative, possessive, or retroactive? Just name it. You don't have to explain your whole story. Just identify your primary type. Second, which of the 5 roots resonates most? Anxious attachment, low self-esteem, past trauma, projection, existential fear? Name the root that you know, deep down, is feeding your jealousy. And once you name it, once you write it in the comments, you've started the transformation. Because naming is power. Naming takes the vague, overwhelming thing that's been controlling you and makes it specific, knowable, addressable. And when you name it publicly, even anonymously in a comment section, you're committing. You're saying, this is my struggle. I'm not hiding from it anymore. I'm facing it. And that facing is the beginning of freedom. And I'll be there. I read every comment, and I want to know which type is yours, which root is yours. Because once you name it, I can respond. I can give you specific guidance. And you'll see hundreds of other women naming the same types and roots. And you'll realize you're not alone in this. You're not uniquely broken. You're not the only woman over 50 struggling with jealousy. This is universal, and we're all working to transform it together. Now, I need 2 more things from you before you go. First, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Enough and Whole is not just content, it's a community of women over 50 who are doing the deep psychological work, who are facing the hard things, who are transforming the patterns that have been controlling them for decades, who are choosing growth over comfort. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because every week we're going deeper into the psychology of living freely after 50. And you need this community, you need this work. Subscribe now. Second, share this video. Think about one woman who's struggling with jealousy, your sister, your friend, your mother. Someone whose jealousy is destroying her peace, her relationship, maybe her life. Send her this video. Right now, don't wait. Because jealousy is isolating. Women who struggle with it think they're alone, think they're crazy, think they're uniquely broken. And this video will show her she's not. And it will give her tools to start transforming it. So share it. Help another woman find her freedom. Now let me tell you what's possible on the other side of this transformation. Because I don't want to just tell you how hard the work is. I want you to know what you're working toward, what life looks like when jealousy no longer controls you. And I can tell you this with certainty, because I've seen hundreds of women make this transformation. And they all report the same things. First, you'll feel peace, not the absence of jealousy, but the presence of peace even when jealousy arises. Because you'll know how to handle it, you'll have tools. You'll recognize it as information, not truth. You'll be able to feel it without being controlled by it. And that peace, that ability to feel jealous and still be okay, is profound. It's freedom you've never experienced. Second, your relationships will improve. Not just your romantic relationship, all your relationships. Because when you're not consumed by jealousy, when you're not comparing yourself to every woman, when you're not controlled by fear, you have energy for actual connection. You can be present, you can be generous, you can celebrate other women instead of competing with them. You can trust your partner instead of monitoring them. And that transforms everything. Third, you'll like yourself more. Because right now, part of why jealousy is so painful is the shame. You're ashamed of being jealous. Ashamed of the things you do when jealousy controls you. Ashamed of not being able to stop even though you know you should. But when you transform jealousy, when you do the work and see yourself changing, you'll respect yourself. You'll be proud of yourself. Because doing this work, Facing these wounds, transforming these patterns, that takes courage. And courage builds self-respect. Fourth, you'll discover that the thing you were afraid of, losing your partner to someone else, that fear was never actually about your partner. It was about you, about your belief that you weren't valuable. And once you build your sense of worth, once you know you're valuable regardless of whether your partner stays or goes, the fear loses its power. You'll still prefer that your partner stays, but you'll know you'd be okay if they didn't. And that knowledge, that certainty that you'd survive and even thrive, that's the ultimate freedom. And finally, you'll look back at the years you spent consumed by jealousy, and you'll have compassion for yourself instead of judgment. You'll understand that the jealousy was trying to protect you. It was a strategy your nervous system developed to keep you safe. It wasn't your enemy. It was just an outdated protection mechanism. And once you see it that way, once you can thank it for trying to protect you and then release it because you don't need that protection anymore, you'll be free, truly free. Walter Riso says that women who successfully transform jealousy describe it as getting their lives back. They say, "I didn't realize how much of my life jealousy was taking, how much energy, how much peace, how much joy, how much presence. I was so consumed by it that I wasn't actually living. I was just defending, monitoring, protecting, but I wasn't living. And now, on the other side of the transformation, I'm finally living, finally present, finally free. And I can't believe I almost didn't do this work because I was too afraid or too ashamed." Don't be that woman who looks back with regret. Don't waste more years being controlled by jealousy when freedom is available. Don't sacrifice your peace, your relationships, your life to a pattern that can be transformed. Because it can be. I promise you, it can be. It won't be easy. It won't be fast. But it's possible. And you're capable of it. You have everything you need. The understanding, the tools, the desire, and most importantly, the courage. Because you're here. You watched this entire video. You didn't run away when it got uncomfortable. You stayed, you listened, you faced what you've been avoiding. That's courage. And if you have the courage to face jealousy in this video, you have the courage to transform it in your life. So start today, right now. Choose one tool from the 10 I gave you, just one, the one that resonated most, and practice it today. If it's the reality check protocol, use it the next time jealousy arises. If it's the self-worth inventory, write your 3 things tonight before bed. If it's the comparison detox, commit to 30 days starting today. If it's the vulnerability conversation, schedule time this week to have it with your partner. Just choose one and start. And then tomorrow, practice it again. And the next day. And the next. Not perfectly. You'll forget. You'll slip back into old patterns. You'll have days where the jealousy is as intense as ever. But you keep practicing anyway. You keep choosing transformation over comfort. You keep doing the work even when it feels pointless. Because transformation is built in the days when it feels like nothing is changing. Those are the days that matter most. And weeks from now, months from now, you'll look back and realize something. The jealousy that felt insurmountable today is manageable. The pattern that felt impossible to break is broken. The freedom that felt out of reach is yours. Not because you're perfect. Not because jealousy is gone forever. But because you did the work. You faced the fear. You healed the wounds. You transformed the pattern. And now you're free in ways you never were before. You are not broken. You are not crazy. You are not too damaged to transform this. You're a woman with wounds who developed jealousy as a protection mechanism. And now you're ready to heal the wounds so you don't need the protection anymore. That's growth. That's courage. That's the work we do here. You are enough. You are whole. And your worth is not determined by whether your partner looks at another woman, or whether you're younger than someone else, or whether you can control your partner's behavior. Your worth is inherent, yours, unchangeable. And once you believe that, truly believe it, Jealousy loses its power because it has nothing to threaten. You know you're valuable, and that knowledge sets you free. Welcome to your transformation. Welcome to your healing. Welcome to your freedom. The work starts now, and we're doing it together. Now go. Comment your jealousy type and your root. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this with someone who needs it, and start practicing one tool today. Your freedom is waiting. Go claim it.